Welcome to JackHorney.com show.
Hi, folks. Now, you probably read and listened to the left, who will keep repeating this mantra that 14 million people in the UK or 14 million children or something are living in poverty. Well, that sounds shocking, doesn't it? Now, the image you have is that people are like starving. But have you actually asked yourself what that means, what they define as poverty? In actual fact, the definition of poverty is based on, I think it's the medium of the average wage in the UK, which is, depending on who you look at the stats from, is around £24,000. So the classes, they class people under £24,000 as par. I don't think they are. That means if you say a kid who's 17, but let's say 18, living at home is pulling in a wage, first job, 24 grand or 23 grand, right? Driving around in a flash motor because he's got all the, he's living at home with his parents. So he's basically, doesn't have any other bills. So he can afford a nice motor. He's poor, can't these people? And people are actually raising money. There's, if you look at that guy who's raising money with the sausage thing, your typical middle class person giving a sob story out. Oh, I'm so special. Look at me saving people. I'm giving all the money to the poor. Well, yeah, you're giving money to people who are earning good money. I mean, this is what I keep saying. When people say people are living in poverty, I keep saying, where are they? I don't see them. I don't see people starving. People who are living in the council houses or in houses are not starving. That's just utter garbage. Some have messed up because of the system. When I say some, I don't mean they have. So the system has, because they've stopped benefits and stuff, and that has knocked people back. But that isn't 14 million. And I agree, that's a mess up. I'm not sitting here defending the government because I'm not conservative, and I think the system hasn't worked. I think it could work if they tweaked it. I don't think it's impossible to. I think unfortunately systems it's making people ill and stuff, because I've seen people go through it and they're worried about losing benefits and whatnot, and there is that mess up. But the average person who's on benefits or working is not starving if they're earning 24 grand, are they? I mean, that's just obvious. Now, obviously, if you go out and buy a house that's worth £1,000,000, you might struggle if you're on 24 grand. But that's your choice. You can't blame people, you can't blame the government if people decide to buy very expensive houses or spend a lot on cars and end up in debt. That isn't the government's fault. So if you're in the background, the dogs are just, they're wanting a walk. But I'm just doing this because this is what, when we go through the left, it's just propaganda to try and scare us. I mean, this is just nonsense. I mean, I'm doing a thing on why Labour lost. I'm not lost. I'm not doing it on the. I'm not going to include this because I think it's just a general left thing that they try to scare everybody into believing, and people aren't questioning it. So if you don't believe me, go out and look into the internet, and I'll give you some links. I'll use the BBC as evidence, but there are other ones where they get. You can see this. But you see, if you look at the leftist websites, they don't really tell you this. They hide the fact because they use, I think they call it relative poverty. And that's where they get the 14 million from. I think that's what it's called. Relative poverty is the medium, I believe it is. I'm terrible on stats, even though I did it at GCSE at school. And I did a marketing degree, so I'm not that bright, am I? But I believe the medium wage works out at 24 grand. But others sort of give just slightly under. I mean, you've got different ranges, but you're not talking about. I mean, this. When I heard this 40 million, I was shocked. I mean, I thought, that's disgusting. Then you start looking at it. And it was actually, I think it was a BBC interview when he said, because they were quoting this out, I think they were interviewing a Labour MP, and the interviewer said, but relative poverty is 24,000. People aren't starving at 24,000. It was only then I thought, hang about, I have never questioned that figure. We don't. We don't quite, because we all consider poverty to be in the old-fashioned sense of people starving. The image you have is somebody in Victorian England where they've got nothing and maybe they're having to go into the poorhouse or something. They're feeding on incomes, right? Fine, that you look after. But I've been questioning this for a while. Why, for all these 14 million, you'd think I'd meet some of them. That's like several cities, isn't it? I mean, 40 million is almost the whole population of the UK. I mean, that's the figure they give out, 14 million. Well, that isn't just. I don't know how many millions are in the UK, but I think that's several cities, if I'm correct. I think most cities have 2 or 3 million. I might be wrong on that. But I mean, that's a serious amount of numbers. So question it, folks. When you hear the number 14 million in poverty, remember, they're just spinning you the facts. It's all spin, spin, spin. They're using their own stats to their own advantage, not being really honest. I mean, they know that's not honest. We can always use stats for anything if you want. I mean, we all know that. Never trust stats in that regards. Well, at least, no, trust them, but question them. Make sure you know the source. That's what I should say. Because what you're told and what you find out may be two different things. They're not lying if you're using the relative poverty line. But you've got to remember that that's pulled up because of a few people who are billionaires or are earning a lot of money. That pulls it straight up. So in that regards, I mean, in reality, if you wouldn't have 24,000 as the relative poverty if we was all earning 30,000, that'd be pulled straight down, way down. So this is an artificial one. Now, if you think you've been poor on 20 grand, I don't know what planet you're living on. Now, obviously, if you go out and, I mean, you could be earning 20 grand and buy an expensive house, like I said, and you're going to struggle. Or you could be living in you could buy a house. I mean, my friend, let's put it this way, my friend pays less than she would a mortgage, a lot less. Sorry, I've got that wrong way around. She's got a mortgage and she pays a lot less than she was renting. I mean, I think she pays 300 a month. Right, I mean, she doesn't even need to work full time to pay it. And it's she's got a 3-bedroomed house. This isn't she can get by on part-time money, and she's got a brand new car and everything. You don't need to go. This is the nonsense we're here. Now, if you've got two, say husband and wife, or someone living together with the partners, say, that's 2 incomes. You're on serious money, even if you're not both earning a lot. It's not difficult to get 20 grand. I mean, these days, when I was a kid, 20 grand was a fortune. Not so long. I think it still is now, to be honest. I mean, depending what part of the country you're in, 20 grand sounds like a lot of money to me. I wouldn't mind 20 grand. I mean, a lot of people I know who are self-employed do not earn 20 grand. But they don't take home 20 grand once they pay out all the bills for the business. That's serious money for some people. I mean, some people listening to this probably think, oh, it's peanuts, I earn that in a week. And yeah, some people will do. But others don't. But they're still getting by. They're not struggling, not starving. I mean, if you find, and if anyone from the left's thinking I'm some sort of right-wing jerk-off for saying this, find me someone who's on 20 grand who hasn't bought an expensive house. Well, no, even I don't care if they bought an expensive house. That's their choice. But find me somebody who's starving on 20 grand, and then you can prove the point. Because, Unless they've got other expenses, I don't see why you'd be starving. It's just nonsense. You know, I mean, I do know people do overspend on the houses. People do buy they miscalculate, or they try and go for something they can't afford. I mean, I know people who go out and buy cars they can't afford. I mean, I always say this. I mean, I drive around an old banger because when I ever see somebody in a Mercedes or whatever, often I think, I bet they can't afford it. That I mean, this is what I say to my friends who say, "Oh, I wish we had a car like that." I says, "Look, mate, at the end of the day, the person who's driving that car probably hasn't. That's what they're working for. We see it all the time. People struggling to buy it, but they just want to show off and look as if they're making more money than they are." To make people jealous. Well, that's up to them. I mean, if you want to go out and work and pay for an expensive car, that's up to you. That's your choice. You're an adult. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I mean, anyway. But that's just a little one, folks, because I was just a bit irritated there. I wasn't going to do one today. But I was just reading online this. Well, no, I'll tell you what I was doing. I just saw on YouTube this guy who does this sausage song, and it keeps going on. And obviously, it's like, to me, it's just left wing propaganda, and I really don't have support for it. But obviously, he's bouncing out this 14 million poverty. Well, I'm sorry, 40 million people aren't in, you know, statistically speaking, if you use relative poverty, yeah, but they're not poor. Nonsense. It's just because it's just people. It's irritating. For me, I lose respect for charities and whatnot who misuse information like this. It doesn't make them sound credible. And more I hear it, especially from the left who do a lot of this, they don't sound credible. I lose a lot of sympathy and a lot of belief in what they say. This is why I think people are turning away from the left more and more, because they see it as just lies. I'm afraid I'm now having to question everything I now hear because I don't trust them. And this is what, whenever anyone says any of these facts, please question it. Ask for the source. It's important. And check what they're saying is true, because these days I think we have to, because the garbage we've presented is just this is it. It's just utter garbage, and it's irritating. But people, I mean, I'm surprised people aren't questioning the 14 million. I mean, you know, they hear it, and do they really believe that 14 million people are sat at home eating crumbs off the floor? No. Question the numbers. I'm not here to tell you what to think or do. My advice is always question everything. Because the more I hear the left wingers, the more like feminists and whatnot, all the ones, because it's not just Labour, it's everyone on the left. They seem to lie about everything to prove a point, and it turns out they're just talking porcupines. Well, when I say lie, I mean, 14 million isn't a lie if you use a stats based on relative poverty. But it is a lie in that regards, because it's just somebody use it. It's me. I could label anything as whatever poverty I want. I could say somebody earning. I can make a figure up and say, hey, if you earn less than £40 an hour, that's poverty. I can create my own poverty level, and then I can put that out and say, oh look, England's got X millions par because they're not earning £40 an hour, and because I've created my own stats, that'd be factual. But I mean, if you then said to me, hang about, what is your poverty level? And I says it's £40 per hour, you'd say, you're a goddamn piece of shite, aren't you, really? You're just making this, you just created your own stats to suit your own purpose. It's a bit like I could say, I don't know, let's make something silly. I could say that I don't. I'm half asleep now. Um, I could say that everybody's. I don't know. I don't know. Everyone's got health problems because I consider anyone who drinks more than a teaspoon of milk a day is overdoing it on that regards. You can come out with anything like that. That's my point. It's probably badly made, but the bottom line is, and it's just a simple one, is question that 14 million. And once you find out the poverty level is actually set at around 24,000, some change it. I think I've been looking online. It seems to vary from 20,000 to 24,000, and they play about with it if you've got children or don't have children. It's relatively around that. Anyway, that's it, folks. Just me being irritated today. Bye.